Welcome to Manifest This, Believer versus Skeptic. I'm Sharon Giroux, your resident skeptic who asks all the tough questions. And with me is Jennifer Neal, our manifesting maestro. Whether you're rolling your eyes or raising your vibration, we dive into all things manifestation, mindset, and energy from every side. Hit subscribe, settle in, and get ready for spirited debates, surprising experiments, and laughter on the journey to creating a life you love. Hi, everybody, and welcome to Manifest This, Believer versus Skeptic. Today, we're going to talk about something very interesting, which is, what if not being invited is alignment? Jen, you thought this was a very interesting topic for us to talk about today. You've talked about it on TikTok. Give us a little bit of a preview of this.
Well, I mean, I think this is a universal issue that every single person in their life can relate to. At some point, you don't get invited to a party, right?
Right.
And, you know, at 57 years of age, you can say big deal. Like I had better things to do anyway, or they're not my people. But the reality is that I posted this on TikTok this week. You can check it out. A couple of people commented on the TikTok and said, you know what? Thank you for your perspective on this because I've really struggled with this, like when you're not invited. And doesn't matter whether you're two or three and didn't get invited to the birthday party, or whether you're 57 and you didn't get invited to the dock party, which is what we're going to talk about today. You know, what if not being invited is actually alignment and is tied into manifestation?
So we have officially reached the point where you can get left off the guest list and somehow call it manifestation.
Totally.
Or, maybe they just didn't invite you, Jen.
I know. Well, and they didn't. They didn't invite me, and they didn't invite my other little boat friends. But hear me out, okay? Because, what we're really talking about on this podcast is really about perspective, right? It's about what lens are you looking through? What picture are you looking through all the time at everything in your life? That's really what we're talking about here.
Okay.
So hear me out. What if something that really initially feels like rejection is actually life showing you that's not your room, Jennifer? Those aren't your people. That is not where your energy belongs. And I'm going to make it so obvious for you that it makes it really easy for you not to choose this.
Okay. I'm going to take a bit of a different perspective here. As an introvert who expresses as an extrovert.
Yes.
Sometimes I find that's just fine.
I know. Well, and I get that. And listen, my sister, who's a deep introvert, would probably say the same thing. I'd rather stay home with my cat. But for people that are social and that do want to make friends and that are trying hard, which is the case in this particular scenario, I think that can really be hurtful. And yet what I'm trying to say is maybe you shouldn't be so hurt about this. Maybe you should be thankful.
And still sometimes it's nice to just be invited. Okay. So Let's talk about the experience that you had and where we're going.
Okay. So I think that before I tell you the story, I think that no matter how evolved you are, I don't care how abundant you are. I don't care how much inner work you've done. I don't care how much healing you've done. There is still something very human about discovering that people that you got together and you weren't included, right?
Right. So especially if you thought you were part of that circle.
Or maybe not even part of the circle. There's the beginnings of a circle starting to form. So, and I think that's where the conversation gets interesting because there's another layer to this. There's a difference between people having an experience without you. You're never going to be invited to everything.
Right.
Right. And an experience where people apparently need you to know this is the difference. They had a party, big deal. You weren't invited, but they need you to know that they had an experience without you and they had fun without you.
Ooh,
right?
Okay. Now we're getting to the crux of something very interesting.
Right. And so that's where I became really fascinated by the energy behind those actions.
Okay.
Because there's a huge difference between we had the best night last night. Good for you. Woohoo. We all want to have fun. That's what abundance is. And we had the best time last night. And I really need certain people to know that they missed it Do you see the difference in that energy?
Absolutely. So before we get into this energetic crime scene, let's try to establish something, right? That nobody is entitled to an invitation.
Mm-mm.
We're invited to have a dinner party with 6 people instead of 16. They can have close friends. They can have different groups. And, they're allowed to do something without inviting every person they've met. So we're putting that down as a foundational base.
Yes, and there's such nuance to this too, right? Like I have a 5 friend group, very best friend, high school best friend group, and we do a lot together. But we also break off into 2s and 3s and 4s and 1s and 2s. And we share pictures when we're together. Like I went to the Howard Jones concert on Thursday night with one of our besties, and the other 2 weren't there, but we shared pictures of the night with them because we knew they'd be happy to see them and to see us together. And there's zero jealousy around that, right? So there's a difference between that and like that's abundance.
Right.
When
Okay.
you can look at your friends having fun and this even ties into this scenario too, which I'll tell you about because we're kind of talking about something that we haven't put the context to, but that's abundant living when you can look at people having a good time and go, good for them. They're living a joyful life.
It's wanting the best for others.
Wanting the best for others. Yeah. And I still want the best for others, even in this scenario we're going to talk about. But somehow it reeked of a different kind of energy. So here's what happened. So there was a dock party at our boat club last weekend that everybody was invited to. A friend of mine hosted it. She made every single boat on that dock was in the WhatsApp group. They were all invited. Many of them chose not to come for one reason or another, which is fine. So about 8 of us got together. We had a nice little party. It was really great. The key here is that the host of the party also started the WhatsApp group for this whole dock to come together as a community, which we hadn't had before. And I had been there for 4 years. So she kind of brought that to me as starting to make an inclusive group for everybody, which is fine. So we have our little party. Everybody was invited. Some were there, some were not, had a good time. Night, go to bed. The next morning we wake up. There is another private party going on with many of the boats at the other end of the dock, which is fine.
Mm-hmm.
And my little friend, host friend said, oh, I guess we weren't invited to that party. And I said, oh, that's okay. Let them have their fun. I could see one of the old boat owners that's no longer there was down and they were celebrating with him. He hadn't been around for a long time. And so they were having a good time, blah, blah, blah. Big deal. Later on that evening, apparently there was another party and don't forget, in boats, there can be parties going on in boats you would never know about because it's like basically having a house party. Like you'd never know they were in a boat. But anyway, they started on the dock and then I guess this party goes into the wee hours of the morning, which is great, blah, blah, blah. Who cares? We're in bed. It's what happened the next day that I find so interesting. So the next day rolls around. All these photos start showing up in my friend's WhatsApp channel and they were all the photos were all about great time. It was great to see you. We had so much fun. Let's do it again. Meanwhile, half the people in the chat weren't invited to those parties where the chat started out to be very open-hearted. Let's get together, communicative and community-based. Then turned into there was a party. There were 2 parties yesterday and you guys weren't invited. Oh, and by the way, we had a really good time and we know you weren't there. So that's what I wanted to explore today because this has happened, like I felt like it was back in high school again, or grade 7, like even worse.
So it was a movement towards openness, from openness to cliques.
Yeah, it was really, I found it fascinating because so much of the content we talk about, Sharon, is my observation or our observations on what's going on around us, right?
Yeah.
We get our content from life. We see an insight and we're like, whoa, let's explore that, which is what we're doing today. But so let's go back to the idea of abundance versus scarcity. I think this whole conversation is part of an abundance conversation because scarcity would say, why wasn't I invited? Why her and not me? Especially women. Women love this stuff, right? Or a lot of women.
Yeah.
What does this mean? What did I do? Are they talking about me? Don't they like me? Whereas abundance says they're allowed to have a life that doesn't include me, period. I don't care where their photos showed up.
And you're allowed to have a life that doesn't include them as well.
Totally.
Right.
I guess the difference is I would never have a closed party and post pictures of a closed party in a group where I knew all had not been invited or weren't secure enough in the group to get it. Like in my bestie group, if you get upset about that, we have a problem. But in these kinds of groups, where you're newcomers and you're trying to make friends, I think it can be really hard.
So let me ask you something to explore for a minute. And I'm not suggesting that you're necessarily upset in your observation, but upset to me is the wrong word. I can't quite find exactly the right word, but are you, and I'll use it, surprised or upset for the woman who created the group? Are you
I felt
affronted for her?
Yeah, I felt bad for her because I don't necessarily need this energy that I knew this was the energy before this whole thing started. I don't need that in my life. And quite frankly, and I know this sounds a bit good for you, Jennifer, but I don't go down there to make friends. I have the best friend groups. I have a lot of friend groups. I don't need more friends. I go down there to get away and to
Yes.
spend time with my husband and to enjoy the water and to enjoy the lifestyle. I'm not going down there to get drunk every night and be at the parties. I'm really not. And quite frankly, I don't think she is either because she's pregnant, but I just think I felt bad for her because here she was trying to make a real effort to make some friends on a new dock. They've just moved over from the other side of the yacht club. And yeah, I don't know. It just goes to show you sometimes it doesn't matter how equal the players are coming into the game. Sometimes that doesn't matter. There's still going to be cliques in your life. You know what I mean?
The other side of this too is, we often use the word abundance, but the other word that comes to mind here is generosity. Like generosity of spirit, generosity of time, generosity of recognizing that there are people around you, etc. And to me, it's less of an abundance scarcity thing, and it's more of a generosity and kindness thing where it sounds like people just missed the mark on that.
Yeah, I would love to think that, but I think it is an abundance thing when if we think back to our days when we talked about the emotional guidance system, remember those days when we talked
Right.
about the Esther Hicks emotional guidance system? If you look at generosity on that scale versus the opposite of generosity is scarcity, is fear. It's, I don't have enough, so I have to, or I'm not secure enough, so I have to hold close to my heart. Like those are two different ends
Right.
of that guidance system. And so people that are generous of spirit are also generous. They're so comfortable. They're so content. Remember where contentment was on that scale?
Mm-hmm.
They're
Yeah.
so content. They're so happy. They're so joyful. They don't have to hold anything back,
Right.
including their energy, their space, their time. So it again, what lens are you looking through it? You know me. I always look
Yeah.
through an abundance lens. I try to. I
And
try
you
to.
know me, I always look at other aspects of it
Yeah,
too.
for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
So, I think that sentence alone, that idea that they're allowed to have a life that doesn't include me, I think that can be very freeing for us, for those of us that do get a little bit upset or, you're not supposed to be at every table. You're not supposed to be included in every conversation and you're not supposed to belong everywhere. You're just not. And the closer and the faster you get to comfort with that,
Yeah.
everything flows in again, right?
Well, and, frankly, sometimes that sounds exhausting. Imagine being invited to everything.
Yeah. And this is a great example for me this week. Party on Friday night, concert on Sunday night, out with clients last night, baseball game tonight, birthday party tomorrow night, and back to the boat on Friday night. I am exhausted. So I've
Mm-hmm.
already cut out half of what that agenda should have looked like. I'm exhausted. So you're
Yeah.
right. Like, I don't want to go to everything.
Right. And that's
So
the funniest part because half the time people are upset that they weren't invited to something they wouldn't have wanted to attend in the first place.
totally. And that is the strangest thing about rejection because sometimes we're not grieving the actual experience. You didn't want to go anyway.
Yeah.
We're grieving what the invitation would have represented, which is inclusion.
Okay. So that's interesting. Let's explore that just a little bit more.
Yeah. So again, this is the crux of manifestation. If the invitation says you're invited, you're included, you're part of us, and sometimes we don't actually want the party, we just want the confirmation that we're enough. We're back to that comment.
Right.
You're enough. And the faster we can get to you're enough without the invitation, the faster all the good things flow into your life.
Well, and here's the other side of it. Like, do we need external affirmation that we are enough versus looking internally, as you're mentioning?
Totally. And we all do. I don't care how secure you are.
Yes.
There's this point at which we all really appreciate. Some people need. That's where the word needy comes from.
Yeah.
They need the external validation. And I think that's where this becomes bigger with invitations, because how much of our lives do we spend chasing confirmation that we belong?
Well, and sometimes you just want to be seen.
Yeah, for sure. We all want to be seen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's keep going.
Okay. So I guess part 2 of this would be like when enjoyment actually becomes performance, which is, I think, maybe what happened on the weekend.
Okay, tell me more.
So the other side of this is, people have a fabulous time. We all take photos. Sometimes we post them. Sometimes we write about them and share them. And it's wonderful, right?
Right? Normal. Okay.
Totally normal. But I think most of us can feel the difference when something shifts from sharing joy to performing exclusion.
Okay. This is interesting. I know what you mean, but I'm going to challenge you for a minute. How do you actually know the difference between the two?
Okay, that's a fair question.
Yeah, because you could be projecting intention onto somebody else's post and write, best night ever, and you read best night ever, and Sharon, you weren't there, but that wasn't what was written, right?
Absolutely. And I think this is what the important part was, and I think this is what happened on the weekend. There was a clear message, I think, my perspective is there was a clear message sent to people that weren't there that this should happen again. They had a great time. They were up to the wee hours of the morning. Somebody left a wine glass behind, and they even took a picture of the wine glass that was left behind. So yeah, this is the important part. We can't ever know somebody else's intention. Sometimes you don't know their intention. So I'm not talking about diagnosing people. I am talking about examining our own behavior. Ask yourself. That's all we can control, right? You can only control yourself. So ask yourself, when I post this, when I say this, when I make sure that certain people see this, am I sharing because I'm happy, or am I sharing because I want a reaction?
Yep, I'm with you. Keep going.
Because energetically, those are very different things. Abundance says again, I'm had an amazing time.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for such a joyful time.
Yep.
Scarcity says, I had an amazing time, and I need you to know that you weren't a part of it.
Right, because the second one still requires an audience, and sometimes a very targeted audience.
Totally. And we're all guilty of it. I think we've all done this from time to time.
Okay.
But yes, the second one, the one where you weren't there and I need you to know we had a good time without you, that version needs attention. That version needs envy and validation and status. And it needs someone to think, wow, I wish I'd been there, or I wonder why I wasn't invited. Right? And if you need somebody else to feel left out in order for you to feel included, is that abundance? Was that an abundant party?
So
I don't know.
In some respects, that's the skeptic's argument as well, right? You don't even need manifestation for that. It's just, insecurity.
Totally. Yeah. And again, insecurity fits on the guidance system. So okay, you and I, we will share custody of that point.
Okay.
Fine.
So here's where I struggle a little bit with it. The premise maybe not being invited is alignment, because again, sometimes I think manifestation can become a very elegant way of avoiding hurt, an element perhaps of false positivity.
Okay, say more.
Okay, so, you don't get invited, it hurts you. And instead of actually saying, wow, that hurt my feelings, you say the universe is protecting my energy. Maybe it isn't. Maybe you're disappointed that someone's intentionally excluded you. Maybe that's an indication that your friendship has changed, or maybe you just need to look at something in a different way.
Totally. But it wouldn't be offside for me to say that comment that I say often, which is, do you believe you live in a good universe or in a bad universe? Do you believe that everything works out for your highest good?
Yeah.
Do you believe that things are working out in your favor all the time and that the universe is trying to guide you to everything you've asked for that's sitting in that Esther Hicks vortex, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you believe that, if you believe that the universe is a kind, good place, then the universe is definitely trying to steer you away from things that aren't on your path, which means invitations that don't get sent to you.
Yeah, but we come back to the same discussion you and I have all the time. And that is, that may be, but we're human and we get hurt or we get upset or something frustrates us as humans, right? It's getting your head into the mindset you're suggesting. Alignment should never become denial.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, alignment should never become denial. I'm not saying nothing hurts because everything is manifestation. Everything hurts. Like things hurt.
Yep.
What I am saying is feel the sting, notice it, and ask yourself, why does this hurt?
Right.
And then decide what you're going to make it mean.
Okay. So that's different.
Very different. Because I can say that hurt without saying, therefore, I'm unwanted, right? It's that second piece. I can say, I wish I'd been included without saying, therefore, everyone else has something that I don't. Or, that I can say that friendship has changed without saying, therefore, I need to chase them and convince them to choose me again, which is a classic response.
Okay, so I like that. So really what we're looking at is it rejection or is it information?
Yeah, so here's the question I want people listening to consider. What if rejection is sometimes just information?
Okay, keep going.
So someone doesn't include you, that's information. That's all it is. Someone consistently doesn't reciprocate. That's information.
Yep.
You notice you feel terrible every time you're around a certain group.
Yep.
That's information. You realize you have to shrink yourself to fit into a room or be something different. That's information. You constantly, like, for example, last night we go out for dinner with clients. I meet a client's girlfriend for the very first time. She's very polished. She's very, very royal. She just held her body in a very graceful way all the time. She never put her elbows on the table. And I'm a bit of a chaos, right? I'm, as you know, like
You're
a
Jennifer.
bit loud. Yeah, I'm a bit loud. I'm very smiley, very open, very like huggy. And she's sitting there with her body closed and very polite and lovely, but very like a princess, like a good princess, like a Princess Catherine, right? And I'm like, how was your trip? And blah, blah. And for a minute, I thought maybe I should hold my hand on like that, just so as not to put your elbows on the table, and very lovely and very elegant. And I'm just a bit more of a spaz. And I thought, no, why would I not be who I am? Because that's what makes me, right? Anyway, this is all just information for us. So there's an opportunity where, are we going to leave every interaction wondering whether people like us?
Yeah.
Like that's information.
Yeah. And I often call it data points because I'm an observer and I like to observe people and behavior, consistency in their patterns, etc., and what they do. So
yeah,
I understand the point that you're trying to make. It's very powerful. Yeah.
I think, as we said at the beginning, this podcast is about observation and perception and a choice. So you observe, you don't chase, you don't audition, you don't perform, you don't retaliate. You simply say, that's interesting.
Yeah. Very powerful word. Interesting.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
Not how dare they, or what's wrong with me, or wait until they see what I'm doing on the weekend. Like, I'll get you, my pretty.
Well, that's an interesting piece, right? The whole retaliation. So let's talk about the obvious response, right? Because if you're hurt, suddenly you're going to perhaps retaliate in a way that's not particularly gracious.
Yeah. And so maybe they're planning Saturday night and, there's going to be pictures and.
Yeah.
And I'm living my
best life. Yeah.
I live my best life and I need you to know that too.
Yeah. Exactly.
And
we're just human, right? Completely human.
Yeah, totally human. Completely. But energetically, you're still orbiting around them.
Okay. Explain that a little bit more.
Well, if my behavior is designed to produce a reaction in you, you're still controlling my behavior. I'm not living my life anymore, right? I'm responding to yours.
Yeah, that's very good. That's very interesting. Okay.
And I think people confuse that with empowerment, right? I'll show them, but I'll show them isn't freedom. freedom is forgetting you needed to show them anything.
Okay, that's probably my favorite phrase so far.
Well, imagine the difference energetically. One person thinks, wait until they see this. And the other person is so immersed in their actual life that they forgot anyone was watching, right? Which person feels more abundant? Think about it. The person posts a whack of pictures hoping that you see them because they're like, I'll get you. Look at who I was with last night. I partied with Drake.
Yep.
Right? Whatever. And they're like, they're so busy gardening. They missed the story on Instagram completely anyway. Right? See what I mean?
So, Jen, I think there's a lot more to this discussion. And I think we actually need to do a part 2 on this to get us to what this actually has to do with manifestation. Because you and I can debate behavior, reaction, etc. But I think you want to dive into knowing you, the deeper manifestation piece. So maybe what we do is we leave this for another week and get back into it with what this has to do with manifestation. What do you think?
Sounds good to me.
Okay, everybody, thank you so much for listening to Manifest This, Believer versus Skeptic. Stay tuned for part 2, which will release to you in a week. And otherwise, have a fantastic rest of your week and enjoy the invitations you do get and observe the ones you don't. Thanks for tuning in to Manifest This, Believer versus Skeptic. If you enjoyed today's conversation, share it with a friend, believer or skeptic. And don't forget to leave us a review so others can join in the debate. Plus, check out Jennifer's TikTok account, Manifestation RX, where she writes daily prescriptions for manifesting your dreams. Think practical tips with a dash of magic. We love hearing your questions and stories, so tell us what you're manifesting or questioning this week. Until next time, keep an open mind and maybe manifest a little magic.